The top stories tonight in Y News. The Philippines has recorded its highest unemployment rate with more than 4 million Filipinos jobless in September this year.
However, the good news comes as the country marks the second day in a row with less than 2,000 new COVID-19 cases, with the Opta research projecting that the country may register three-digit cases in the coming days.
And with the declining cases, local government units are preparing for the possible expansion of the pilot face-to-face classes in Metro Manila, giving priority to students in the pediatric vaccination. Over in the Senate, resigned Department of Budget and Management USEC Lloyd Christopher Lau was cited in contempt for not attending hearings on the alleged anomalies surrounding the government's COVID-19 response funds.
Meanwhile, the camp of presidential aspirant Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. slammed the gutter politics and smear campaign allegedly being done to the former lawmaker.
And for our global stories, the World Health Organization has granted approval for emergency use to India's COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin, paving the way for it to be accepted as a valid vaccine in many poor countries. Good evening, Philippines and the world. We are now reporting live from Quezon City. Today is Thursday, November 4, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Teo.
First in the news. More than 4 million Filipinos found themselves unemployed in September, the highest so far this year. The agriculture and forestry sector logged the biggest increase in unemployment. Rosa Licons explains why.
The National Economic Development Authority or NEDA expected a higher unemployment rate in September 2021. The Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA reported the unemployment rate in September at 8.9% compared to the 8.1% in August. This translates to 4.25 million unemployed in September, up from 3.88 million in August. PSA also pointed out that this is the highest unemployment rate so far in 2021. 862,000 Filipinos in the agriculture and forestry sector lost their source of income because of the typhoon and end of harvest season. While there were also other contributory factors such as the implemented quarantine restrictions.
8.9 is the highest for 2021 mula January hanggang September. All things being the same, pag talagang very strict, talaga nakita natin na tumataas yung ating unemployment. Pero yun nga, there are also other contributory factors, lalo na dito sa mga matataas yung nag-contribute sa unemployment.
However, NEDA Chief and Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Chua said labor outcomes in October is expected because of the implementation of the granular lockdowns and COVID-19 alert level system in Metro Manila. He also hopes that the new pandemic strategy will be implemented in the whole country to help recover more jobs and livelihoods. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines logged today 1,766 new cases of the coronavirus disease or COVID-19. This is the second straight day that the Philippines recorded less than 2,000 cases. The total number of confirmed cases in the country is now at 2,795,642. In its latest bulletin, the Department of Health or DOH said that the number of active infections in the country stood at 37,159. Of the active cases, 68.9% have mild symptoms, 14.11% were moderate, 8.2% were severe, 5.3% were asymptomatic, and 3.5% were in critical condition. Meanwhile, 2,591 new survivors were logged. This brought the recovery tally to 2,714,658. The death toll, however, climbed to 43,825 after 239 more patients died. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has topped to 248,105,913, while the deaths have surged to 5,022,175, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The U.S. is the worst-hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 46,252,646 and 750,429 respectively, followed by India and Brazil.
Meanwhile, Octa research team fellow Professor Guido David believes that the Philippines will not hit the 3 million mark of COVID-19 cases this year. However, David expressed his concern over the waning efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
My fearless forecast is that we won't reach 3 million cases this year. So, I know we already have 2.7 million, and that seems like a lot, but I think we are not going to be reaching 3 million by the end of this year. So that's the number I'm looking at. If we don't follow minimum public health standards, we could have an increase in cases to 49,000.
Independent pandemic team Octa Research sees no new variant threat in the Philippines. And with the COVID-19 cases averaging to just almost 4,000 daily in the Philippines and 600 cases per day in the national capital region, the cases in the national level are similar to the figures logged in March, and NCR reversed back before the surge in July. With this, the group projects that cases will not breach the 3 million mark this 2021.
Essentially, we have reversed the Delta surge already in the NCR. We're back to where we were before the surge in July.
Wow.
The good news is not just in the NCR. If we look at the other areas, the key reasons are vaccinations. As I mentioned kanina, more than 90% with the first dose of adults in the NCR. And secondly, the lockdown help and the alert level systems working now. And then thirdly, continued compliance of our kababayans wearing face masks and doing minimum public health standards.
Octa's projections also show that the country's 7-day average may drop to below 2,000 by the end of November. Also, with a ramped-up vaccination, the country could only be registering 3-digit cases. Another way to prevent another surge in cases is the administering of booster shots among the healthcare workers or A1 sector. With booster dosing, the country and NCR may also be at very low-risk classification.
There is a theory na kaya nagkaroon ng spikes in some countries. For example, Israel yata is one of them. After 6 months, it's because of the waning efficacy. So ibig sabihin, once the vaccines start losing their effectiveness, we might see more outbreaks. That is possible. That's why we support having the booster shots even before it happens.
The Food and Drug Administration and National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG said booster and third dose rollout will immediately start once the World Health Organization Strategic Advisory Group of Experts or WHO SAGE give their final recommendation. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of the Interior and local government plans to propose to the Interagency Task Force to ease the policy in the use of face shields. But a medical expert says it is still needed in enclosed areas. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
A scientific study reveals that the use of face shield contributes to a lower risk in the COVID-19 infection. Former advisor for the National Task Force Against COVID-19, Dr. Tony Liachon, explains this as he encourages the public to continue to use face shield, especially in enclosed areas.
I believe in the principle na mag-face shield ako, let's say sa hospital, enclosed spaces, pero sa labas hindi. Klaro sa akin yan. Ngayon, kung napapunta ako sa isang lugar, kunyari nag-mall ka, at maraming tao nandun at kumakain, then dala mo yung face shield mo para optional.
Currently, the use of face shield is still mandatory in 3C areas, which includes closed spaces, crowded areas, and close contact settings, including public conveyances. But the Department of the Interior and local government wants to relax the face shield requirement. DILG spokesperson Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya says the agency is set to recommend the easing of the policy on their next meeting with the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases.
We will recommend to the IATF na dahan-dahan na nating tanggalin yung face shield as a requirement, except of course in hospital settings. Doon pag kayo po ay nasa ospital, since high-risk environment yan, sa tingin po namin sa DILG requirement, kailangan ang paggamit ng face shield.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque earlier said that the IATF is already studying such change in the policy. Several public commuters, on the other hand, have different views about the mandatory use of face shield.
At pwede nang tanggalin ng face shield kasi minsan kapag sa akin ay may sobrang init, mahapdi sa mata. At saka nakakasagabal din kapag habang naglalakad minsan o nasa sasakyan ka po.
Kasi only in the Philippines tayo naka-face shield. Hindi na to kailangan kasi meron na tayong face mask. Kasi ito sa gaba kita man nakasalamin, blurred. Tapos ito parang, ewan ko, hindi ko gusto na to. Talagang tatanggalin na to kasi ang init. Parang nadidistract ka sa lahat ng gagawin mo, promise.
Dito rin dapat mag-face shield ka rin para maprotektahan yung natin. Kasi medyo inano na nila ng 70% yung laman medyo dikit-dikit na.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Students in Metro Manila are now given priority in the general pediatric vaccination of local government units. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
No schools in Metro Manila were listed in the final list of participating schools that will conduct the pilot face-to-face classes in November 15. This despite the Department of Health classifying it already as low risk. However, Education Secretary Leonor Briones explains that schools in the capital could be considered for the second batch or when the pilot study is expanded. That is why local government units are preparing for it. Aside from children with comorbidities, several cities are now giving priority to students in the pediatric vaccination. Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto says they want to assure that students are safe once the in-person classes resumes in the city.
So the schools are ready. The teachers are ready. Vaccination, pinaka-importanting step natin kasi gusto na natin bumalik sa face-to-face classes but we want to do it in a safe way.
Marikina City Mayor Marcy Teodoro, meanwhile, targets to vaccinate 70% of the school population to achieve herd immunity.
Ang pagbabakuna ay mangyayari on a per school basis dahil gusto nating ma-monitor kung mababakunahan natin yung 70% ng school population dahil ito yung target natin para sa herd immunity ng mga paaralan.
On the other hand, Mayor Francis Zamora opens its doors to non-resident students in San Juan City.
Importanteng yung mga mag-aaral dito sa aming lungsod ay bakunado na. So kung kayo po ay taga-ibang lungsod, ngunit dito nag-aaral, you can opt to get vaccinated here or opt to get vaccinated in your city.
The LGU has partnered with the school's division offices of DepEd to ensure the wide coverage of vaccination among public and private school students. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Philippine National Police assured that the Directorate for Logistics and other concerned police units are prepared to help in transporting vaccine in far-flung areas. This after President Rodrigo Duterte ordered the use of police and military assets in bringing COVID-19 to the regions. Leia Iglagan reports.
Philippine National Police Chief, Police General Guillermo Eleazar guaranteed that their air, land, and sea assets are ready to transport COVID-19 vaccine to various areas in the country. Eleazar says, since the beginning of the vaccination rollout, policemen are helping from the security to the delivery of vaccine.
I already directed the police regional directors to coordinate with local chief executives to discuss the logistics of the vaccine delivery. Akin rin silang inatasan na mag-deploy ng karagdagang personnel na tututok dito sa deliveries ng bakuna.
The PNP chief also expressed the willingness of the Medical Reserve Force to help in the inoculation.
Bukod sa seguridad at transportasyon, nakastandby rin ang ating Medical Reserve Force para agad ma-deploy kung alinmang mga lokalidad ang kailangan ng tulong para pabilis ang proseso ng pagbabakuna.
Meanwhile, local police units have been tasked to help out in disseminating the right information about the COVID-19 vaccines through their social media platforms and their upland bandilyo. The national government aims to administer at least 15 million doses against COVID-19 in November as the country moves to achieve its target herd immunity. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte has signed Republic Act number 11594, increasing the penalties for perjury or the act of making untruthful statements under oath. Under the said law, perjury is committed by a person who knowingly makes untruthful statements under oath or make an affidavit upon any material before a competent person authorized to administer an oath in cases in which the law so requires. It is punishable with prison, mayor, in its minimum period of 6 years and 1 day to 8 years, and medium period of 8 years and 1 day to 10 years. And if the offender is a public officer or employee, he or she may be imprisoned in its maximum period of 12 years and be fined an amount not exceeding 1 million pesos. He or she may also be perpetually and absolutely disqualified from holding any appointed or elective position in government. Meanwhile, an arrest order against former Budget Undersecretary Lloyd Christopher Lau is now up for Senate President Vicente Soto's signature after he was cited in contempt by the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Meanwhile, Senator Richard Gordon has defended the committee's tax expert witness, and Senator Risa Ontiveros claiming that it is the habit of the government to try to harass witnesses and senators. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
In the 14th Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing, the former head of the Procurement Service of the Department of Budget and Management, Lloyd Christopher Lau, was cited in contempt for not appearing for the fourth time. Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairperson Richard Gordon stressed that Lau is now a private citizen, thus he is excluded from the memorandum order of President Duterte banning officials from the executive department from attending the probe.
Panahon na para tawagin natin at sabihin under contempt na si Lau. Because marami pa tayong tanong, kay Lau, hindi na siya nagpapakita dito. Wala ka na po sa gobyerno. Kailangan humarap ka rito.
Lau has yet to comment on the recent order. The committee says the arrest order against Lau is awaiting signature from Senate President Vicente Soto III. Meanwhile, some senators have expressed support to one of its resource persons, tax expert Mon Abrea, after he revealed that a complaint has been logged against him before the Professional Regulatory Commission or PRC. He also bared that he has been receiving unsolicited advice to withdraw from the proceedings.
May nagrereklamo po para ma-revoke po ang CPA license ko. Gusto ko lamang po ipaalam sa committee, Mr. Chairman, kung sakali po akong mawawala, hindi po ako nagpa-bribe. Meron lang po talaga mga tao na gusto po akong i-discredit.
Ganoon na rin ang ginagawa ngayon kay Senator Ontiveros. At ganoon rin ang ginagawa sa atin lahat dito. At ganoon rin ang ginawa sa COA na ihulog yung sa hagdanan niya mga yan. So there is really a pattern. Enough is enough. We will back up Mr. Abrea. I mean, he's an expert witness here. Yes. Why is he going to be harassed?
The whole point of this harassment is so that people will not stand up and speak out. It is to intimidate, it is to sow fear, it is to prevent us from uncovering the truth.
Abrea also presented the material misstatements on Formalise tax records. It was revealed that based on their income tax return from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, Formally claimed a 95 million peso income tax due but only paid over 21 million pesos. There was also a 3.4 billion peso unsupported purchases and 74 million unaccounted cash. Meanwhile, Gordon is set to write a letter to the BIR to look into the tax records of businessman and former presidential economic advisor Michael Yap. Yang. This comes after Yang insisted that he did not file his ITRs prior to 2018 because he did not receive income in the Philippines. Gordon also wants to notify the Bureau of Immigration for Yang's alleged violation of his tourist visa when he arrived in the country.
Inamin mo dito sa committee na 2005, 2006, 2007, nagbenta ka na, naging ahente ka. So may kita ka. Sa lahat ng taon na yon, wala kang binayad na buwis. Dalawang tanong ko sa iyo. Di ba, inabuso mo ang pag-welcome sa iyo ng bansa na ikaw ay tourist? Na nagnegosyo ka na hindi ka gumawa, hindi ka nagbayad ng buwis? Giloko mo ang bayan?
I did not really have an income, so I just came here and go back and forth to China, and I was just helping my friends.
The next Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing is set on November 25. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Several presidential aspirants conducted different activities today, with some seizing the moment to pitch their platforms to Filipino voters. Nel Marie Bohok reports.
The tandem of Senators Panfilo Lacson and Vicente Soto III held their first online forum with the media. During the forum, presidential aspirant and Senator Lacson expressed his support to the government's move to ease the curfew and transportation restrictions that will benefit the economy.
It's about time na mag-open up tayo. Yung paglilit ng curfew, pati yung pagtataas ng capacity ng mga passenger buses, tama yung move na yon. At saka yung pagmalawakang involvement ng mga LGUs tungkol sa pagbabakuna, matagal na rin namin ito talagang tinutulak din. Kaya lang, yung containment strategy kailangan hindi mawala.
Senator Manny Pacquiao meanwhile proposed to further lower corporate income tax to further help the business sector and entice investments in the Philippines.
Pag sinabing tax, corporate tax, yan, taas natin. Hindi tayo kayang, hindi natin kayang pantayan yung corporate tax ng Singapore. Ang Singapore is only 17%. Kaya look at Singapore. Will develop talaga ang Singapore. Talagang nandoon lahat ng mga businesses.
Pacquiao also divulged that he wants a hybrid federalism and the end of contractualization. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, on the other hand, would push for the construction of infrastructure for clean and renewable energy.
Nakikiisa tayo na maghanap ng mga paraan para magkaroon ng clean energy, renewable energy, at open green space.
Dumagoso also backed calls to slash taxes on crude oil and said that oil-dependent power will only be temporary. Nel Marie Bohok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Presidential aspirant and Partido Federal ng Pilipinas standard-bearer Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s camp assures not to engage in gut politics despite the attacks against the former lawmaker. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening.
Good evening, Harleen. Presidential aspirant Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has advised his Chief of Staff and spokesperson Attorney Vic Rodriguez to prepare for more incoming attacks from their political rivals. In fact, a petition to cancel the Marcos' candidacy is pending before the Commission on Elections. But Marcos advises even his supporters not to engage in such gutter or dirty politics and focus on their unifying campaign.
Our campaign is about nation building, and this election is about the future of the Philippines and the future of the Philippine people. And we will not engage in this gutter style of politics being thrown our way by our detractors.
Meanwhile, in an interview, COMELEC spokesman Director James Jimenez said it would take them 6 weeks to have a resolution over a cancellation case. Based on the process, a cancellation case will be raffled to a division headed by the commissioners. A summon or notice will be issued and served to the respondent, and 5 days will be given for the respondent to answer the complaint. A pre-conference of the case will be conducted and 3 days would be given for the parties to submit their memorandum, and the case will be submitted for resolution. And that's our latest live from Quezon City. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
Local chief executives may face sanctions for their failure to submit their COVID-19 vaccination reports. JP Nunez will tell us why.
To complete the vaccination data from the national government, local government units need to submit the daily vaccination data to National Vaccine Operations Center. However, the Department of the Interior and Local Government explains that there are still 30% of the LGUs who were yet to submit their complete vaccination data. This equates to a 10 million backlog of vaccination data. The DILG will file a show cause order to the respective local chief executives for the next 2 weeks.
Meron nga pong 30% ng mga LGUs na hindi nagsusumite ng kanilang updated records every day. Dahil base po doon sa ating pulisiya sa National Vaccine Operations Center, at the end of the day, kailangan po ay nare-report nila yung nababakunahan nila. Posible po na mag-issue na ng show cause order ang DILG laban sa mga LGUs na ito na hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa rin nagsasubmit ng updated data.
The DILG continues its probe against LGUs who were allegedly neglecting the vaccination rollout of the government. USEC Jonathan Malaya adds that the supply of vaccine is not a big problem today, as national government was able to address the issue of vaccine delivery to provinces.
Ang nakikita po namin problema ngayon ay within the local government unit, yung paghahatid ng bakuna mula doon sa sentro or sa sentro ng LG or sa poblasyon, papunta po sa mga barangay. Kasi nga po dapat nating ilapit yung vaccination sa kanila para hindi na po sila mahirapan magpabakuna.
The DILG clarifies that delivery of vaccine supply to LGUs, which is subject for investigation, will not be hindered. They support the plan of the National Task Force Against COVID-19 to conduct National Vaccination Day this November, which aims to ramp up vaccination rollout within 3 days. The DILG will issue mandate regarding the program. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation assures that it will resolve its debts to private hospitals after some facilities threaten to cut ties. JP Nunez details why.
Disengagement of partner hospitals of the Philippine Insurance Corporation may result to grave impact on the country's healthcare system, especially to those patients who are incapable to pay their hospital bills. With this issue, the state insurer appeals to private hospitals to reconsider disengaging from Philhealth. This after some hospitals warned that they will cut ties with Philhealth over the unpaid COVID-19 claims. The state insurer assured that they will expedite releasing of claims asked by hospitals.
Kami po ay umaasa na kung may mga plano man po ang ilan sa ating mga ospital na mag-disengage mula sa Philhealth, sana po ma-reconsider po nila ito. Ito po ay napakaseryoso ang magiging epekto sa ating bansa, in particular sa mga pasyente na wala pong kakayanan na magbayad fully ng buong hospitalization bill nila. At maraming kababayan natin umaasa lang po talaga sa benepisyo nila mula po sa Philhealth.
Ray Balenya, a manager of Philhealth, explains that there are continuous dialogues between Chief Executive Officer Dan Tegueran and the Private Hospitals Association of the Philippines Incorporated to fix issues for paying unpaid claims. Philhealth assures they have enough fund to pay about 20 billion peso unpaid COVID-19 claims to hospitals.
Ginagawa na po ng Philhealth ang lahat po ng aming makakaya para po ma-release na po natin yung mga bayad na yan. May mga major policy issuances po kami, policy actions na ginawa, at ito ay kamakailan lamang at maaapektuhan po nito yung pong mga nakabinbing mga COVID claims. And moving forward, makakaasa po yung ating mga hospitals na dadating na po ang mga bayad natin, especially doon sa COVID-19 claims.
Meanwhile, Baleñas said 152.8 billion pesos were already paid to hospitals since January 2020 until October 28 this year. PHAPI President Dr. Jose De Grano says the state insurer should pay the claims before they renew their accreditation next year, as this is the only solution they see to address the issue.
We'll try to see itong last ditch effort natin with the management of Philhealth and these hospitals ay maayos, and then siguro we'll see kung anong magandang concession or win-win solution na mangyayari dyan. No? Kasi actually, sinabi ko naman sa kanila, ang talagang solusyon dyan ay magbayad sila.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, the World Health Organization has granted approval for emergency use to India's government-backed COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin. This marks a major victory for India's journey fighting against COVID-19. RK Lorca has the details live. Yes, RK.
Mariel, Covaxin, made by Bharat Biotech Company, can be used as part of the UN-backed COVAX to distribute and proved to be accessible for low to middle income countries for its easy storage requirements. Approval was made in January by the WHO, which gave relief to the 105 million or 52% of people who received the jab so far. Bharat Biotech's data suggests 78% vaccine efficacy and roughly 65% against the more contagious Delta variant of coronavirus. However, these figures spark concerns and questions regarding the insufficient data of the vaccine safety in pregnant women. But the World Health Organization Technical Advisory Group ruled that the benefit of Covaxin met the standards for protection, thus significantly outweigh the risks. WHO's Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization recommends the use of vaccine in 2 doses with an interval of 4 weeks in all age groups 18 and above. Mariel, India currently has more than 253 million people who are fully vaccinated, with 40% of them have received Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, RK Lorca, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Following a freeze on funding to the Taliban administration, UNICEF is planning to set up a system to fund Afghan teachers directly. Maven Dog will tell us why live. Yes, Maeve, good evening.
Mariel, since the Taliban takeover in August, Afghanistan's public services, including health and education, plunged into crisis, leaving teachers without pay for months. According to UNICEF Chief of Education in Afghanistan, Jeanette Vogelar, the best way to support girls' education is by supporting their schools and teachers. She further added that the United Nations Children's Agency is calling on international organizations and donors to not let Afghanistan's children down. Meanwhile, the international community has warned that the Taliban might restrict female education. Currently, high schools for girls in many parts of the country have remained closed, while those for boys have been allowed to open. However, this week, Taliban official Wahidullah Hashimi said older girls might be able to go back to school soon, and that they are working with UNICEF on a daily basis to come up with a good solution. Marielle?
Thank you, Maven Dog, reporting live from Toowoomba, Australia. New methane regulations against oils and gas drilling companies in the U.S. have been introduced by the Biden administration or government. Paul Gatchalian will tell us why live. Yes, Paul?
Ariel, the White House recently detailed their new plans proposed by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to eliminate the release of toxic pollutants derived from upcoming and current oil and gas companies. The newly introduced regulations are set to cut U.S. methane emissions by 75%, as this gas has been responsible for 30% of the world's rising temperatures, alongside other greenhouse gases, states the UN Environment Program. The plan focuses on stopping large methane sources coming from the factory leaks, where facilities intentionally vent out methane during the process of their production. Compared to when they were first introduced back in 2016, the EPA's new regulations are more stricter and even more enforced from when ex-President Donald Trump eased on regulations. Aside from EPA's new plans, President Biden also joined the Global Methane Pledge with the European Union last September, aiming to reduce global methane emissions by 30%.
Thanks to the effort of our joint effort with the EU, we've grown global methane pledge. Remember, I raised it when I spoke to the United Nations from 9 countries signing on to that pledge in September at the United Nations. More than 100 countries have signed on. It's about half the world's methane emissions, 70% of the world's global.
Meanwhile, the recent COP26 announced that 100 more governments also joined the pledge. Marielle?
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, for that live report. New coal and gas projects in Australia could produce almost 1.7 million tons of carbon emissions annually, according to a research released by the Australia Institute. The Australian government has listed 116 projects under development, each valued at $50 million. If these projects are approved, it would result to an increase of 30% in carbon emissions within Australia. Despite the government's commitment to net zero emissions by 2050, Prime Minister Scott Morrison stated ahead of the COP26 summit that the government would not shut down the country's coal and gas production. Conservationists praised Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso when he announced the expansion of Galapagos Marine Reserve at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. Conservationists called it a brilliant first step. Joselito Liquido explains why live. Yes, Joselito, please go ahead.
Good evening, Marielle. Environmentalists see the marine protection's expansion around the Galapagos Island by 60,000 square kilometers as the first step that would make it more resilient to climate change. They also hope that this would lead to the protection of the migration routes of endangered species. Professor of Climate Studies Sandy Tudhope of the University of Edinburgh said that the expansion would also benefit the fishermen, as they would act as nursery grounds if they get the areas of protection correctly, and will get a spill out from those areas that support surrounding fisheries. Meanwhile, the CEO of the Galapagos Conservation Trust, Sharon Johnson, highlighted the importance of putting the resources in place to adequately protect the new reserve. Marielle?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, reporting live. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza, reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 2, verse 6. It says, "For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding." And those are the reasons behind the news, November 4, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.